Okay. My name is Evan Gessner. I'm a civil rights attorney in Lexington, South Carolina. This is my first year judging a national We the People competition, though I've judged the state level competition here for about the last 12 or 13 years or so. So I'm excited to be here and I look forward to your presentation.
Hello, my name is Francine Engel, and I am a political scientist, and I focus on American constitutional development, and I currently work with the Maryland Council for Civic and History Education.
And hello, my name is Jocelyn Broman. I'm a We the People alumni. I competed at nationals back in 2006, which feels like several lifetimes ago. I am also an attorney, and I currently work on Capitol Hill for Representative Don Young of Alaska.
Hi, my name is Kara Daughtery.
Hello, my name is Lexi Crawford.
Hi, I'm Kayla Bowling.
And hi, I'm Ben Moore. We represent Highlands High School, Commonwealth of Kentucky, and our administrator is Ms. Boyman-Hennies.
Thank you. All right, so we've got Unit 3, Question 2. Let's see, John Adams once said, "There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government?" Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Concerns expressed by John Adams to Jonathan Jackson perfectly reflect how many politicians felt about the formation of political parties in the time following the American Revolution. In President Washington's farewell address, he said political parties will destroy the very engines which have lifted politicians to unjust dominions. However, two factions had varying opinions on several key issues. This created divisions and ultimately led to the formation of the first political parties in 1790, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Among these issues were the power of the national government and economic vision.
One main topic of debate when attempting to ratify the Constitution was the power of government. In Federalist 45, Madison argues that the balance of power between the states and the national government will support the greatest happiness of the people. Hamilton argues that the Constitution created a government designed to take on national problems. The enumerated powers and the necessary and proper clause in Article 1, Section 8 were two examples of this. Jefferson argued the Constitution's description of national powers was too vague, and the failure to state rotational term limits for the chief executive was playing a dangerous game.
In addition, the two factions' economic visions contributed to the divide. Democratic Republican Thomas Jefferson didn't think there should be a national bank, as he interpreted the necessary and proper clause strictly, citing the 10th Amendment. He also pointed out in the General Welfare Clause that Congress can lay and collect taxes only to pay the debts or provide for the welfare of the Union. Federalist Alexander Hamilton, however, wanted to establish a national bank to collect taxes and regulate trade as supported through Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. In the case of McCulloch versus Maryland, Justice Marshall held that the bank was constitutional and that while the states had the power of taxation, the Constitution and the laws made are in control of the federal government.
These issues have persisted over development of political parties. The early nomination system, dubbed King Caucus by critics, is where members of Congress have a say in the election of a party leader. This chaotic system and the demise of the Federalist Party in 1820 led to the Democratic-Republican majority. Thus, the election of 1824 featured the first and only election that had 4 presidential nominees. This nomination system is now used in local elections such as Iowa, where caucuses are held every 2 years in its primaries.
Furthermore, these independent nomination processes have caused division within our government and have since formed a solid two-party system and solidified Washington's fears in his farewell address. However, current advancements are being made to prevent further division and the institutional implementation of the two-party system. In the state of Alaska, ranked voting was recently adopted in 2020 to be used in future elections.
These nomination processes are protected by the overbreadth doctrine and the right of association, illustrated in the First Amendment and in Buckley v. Valeo. This case held that political campaigns and candidates did not violate the First Amendment because the limitations of the Federal Employees Compensation Act enhance our representative democracy. Hyperpartisanship in the past several decades has divided voters and government officials not just in policies, but also in faith in the electoral system, as was evident by the January 6th insurrection.
Within a divided government, Martin Van Buren pushed the idea that political parties could serve as a glue within the American constitutional system and as an additional check and balance within the government. But there are more disadvantages to a divided government. Opposing views on legislation can lead to inefficiency.
In 2016, Democratic President Obama nominated Merrick Garland as Supreme Court Justice, but Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell declared any nominations to be null and void due to it being an election year. However, in 2020, Republican President Trump's nomination of Amy Coney Barrett was approved by the Republican majority in Congress during an election year. The differing interpretations of the Constitution that led to the formation of political parties at the beginning are the same issues that divide contemporary conservatives and contemporary liberalism today. Thank you when you're ready for your questions.
All right, excellent. So tell me, are political parties inevitable in the democratic system of government?
As Madison argued in Federalist Paper 10, he stated that political parties were obviously going to happen at some point, but we needed to build a republic around them to further prevent them from taking over and just dominating the process and slowing down the process of government entirely. With all political parties are factions, but not all factions are political parties.
I agree. Political parties are inevitable. There are so many different things in politics and so many differing interpretations and opinions. We mentioned economic vision and power of the national government, but even things such as foreign policy divided us in the past and still divide us today.
Was it inevitable that we would have two political parties, or was it inevitable that there would be political parties?
I believe that it was inevitable to have political parties. While the two-party system has generally worked for us, I do not believe that was planned or inevitable to happen.
Other countries have adopted a multi-party system, such as Germany and Italy. And the United States did not have to follow a two-party system, but they did adopt that two-party system because usually it helps with government stability.
Is there a reason that the structure we have that would create that kind of two parties?
I believe that two-party system was kind of created as a way to keep another set of checks and balances within the government. Already have three branches of government, so why not split that up into two different ways of thinking?
So when the country started in the early years, you had situations where you had president from one political party and vice president from another political party. Do you think that we would be more democratic or less partisan if the president and the vice president were from different parties today?
I think it truly depends on the moment of time which president resides in. Most recently, in the last stimulus check, Vice President Harris had to break the tie in the Senate, where it was a 50-50 to pass the stimulus bill for $1,400, where Republicans voted against it and Democrats voted yes. So obviously she passed that bill, but if for say she was a Republican, she could have voted against that and gone against Biden's agenda.
And is that necessarily bad?
I don't believe so. If anything, it could be another set of checks and balances.
I believe that having differing political parties within the president and vice president would lead to inefficiency, and it would make it difficult for the United States to accomplish their agenda of what they hope to do for the country in their years as they serve their term.
So that's the second time you guys have mentioned efficiency, both in your statement and in follow-up. Is it the role of Congress to be efficient?
I would say it is, yes.
Well, efficiency, we need efficiency within our government. It is not technically their job. While they do try to push out things as quick as possible, it does quite take a long time for most things at the federal level.
But why would we want them to take a long time?
I also believe that efficiency, that point of efficiency has also just come with time, because back in the start of our government, everything wasn't as much modes of communication, and you wouldn't know what happened instantly. You would know within the span of 3 months, whereas now we have more of an access to technology. So now we expect that efficiency to move with the same pace as our world.
Okay, so the founding fathers, they were very partisan themselves. Do you think that they would be extremely frustrated if they looked at the system and how it's been working today with being so partisan, or would they maybe not be so surprised since they too are very partisan?
I feel like President Washington would be incredibly critical of this, as he warned of this happening in his farewell address. But I feel like members under his cabinet, such as Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, wouldn't be as critical because they took such strong stances in issues regarding like economic vision and foreign policy, specifically the problem with France.
I think that they would have realized as well that the political parties were inevitable as they faced themselves, and would accept that this was just the way that it happened today.
I agree. I don't think they would be surprised. They may be disappointed, but as you mentioned, they were very partisan back in their time, and I did expect that they would know that that would continue into today's time.
All right. Now, we've talked a lot about at the federal levels or the highest levels of our government. What about at state and local levels? What would you have to say about in some areas where you have just a total party dominance? What effect do you think that has on our national government?
I don't think there's a total party dominance within like state legislatures per se. In Vermont, there is 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 Vermont Progressive Party leader within their government. And that smaller system of government allows for the introduction of new political parties and the introduction of more progressive ideology. Whereas on a federal government, you don't have that chance, because to get elected, you have to present yourself to a broader group of people.
Now, what about where you live? I mean, do you see a party dominance in your own hometown?
I would definitely have to say yes. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has been in office for 30 plus years now, and we've had no one else in that seat. So I would definitely say our state has a Republican majority for the past 40, 30 years.
I agree. We definitely have a Republican majority, but our governor, Andy Beshear, is a Democrat. So we do see that some progressive ideals are taking over.
So you all mentioned the ranked choice voting system, Alaska, very nice. Also, do you think that that's gonna, if more states adopt that, is that gonna help more parties kind of get into federal level politics?
Maybe state level, but not federal level, because once again, it's such a broad group of people to present yourself to. So really, you only see the top 2 to choose between. But I think on a state level or even a local level, that could work quite well, because that's where you could really be fighting between who you really want in office, besides those top 2.
With the Electoral College, it's so difficult to present more political parties into the federal government. But yeah, if we started on a smaller scale, such as state governments, that could make its way onto the larger federal government scale.
What would that do to,
Hi.
come on, John.
I'm already starting early today.
Good job, guys.
Let's congratulate the students for their hard work and participation today.
All right, everyone, great job. Compared to the question we had yesterday, I noticed we're flying through this a lot faster, and I'm having we're asking multiple questions from each of the judges. And in my experience, usually this doesn't happen. But I can tell you all are very well prepared. You know, you're answering the questions and moving on. So that we're able to cover a lot of ground and really touch on a lot of issues in this question. So good job.
Yeah, I thought you did a wonderful job in your presentation. You did a really good job explaining the difference between Jefferson and Hamilton, particularly on the necessary and proper clause, and the difference between the two political thoughts at the beginning of the Republic. And I like that you brought up that Alaska ranked choice voting. And I thought you had a really good example in there with Merrick Garland versus Amy Coney Barrett. So I thought that was a really good example that you brought up. And then I also really like, the question that I asked about, whether or not the founding fathers, would they be disappointed? And, I like how you kind of pointed out, yeah, I think Washington would be very disappointed because, he is the, example of civic virtue out there. But, Jefferson and Hamilton probably, saw it coming. So I thought you did a nice job with the questions, and I really enjoyed your presentation.
Yeah, it was a very good presentation, guys. We covered a lot of ground, which is great because then we could see like the breadth of how much you had thought about these different issues, from all the way from ranked choice voting and first past the post versus those two, versus parties versus factions, where you were talking about like, are parties inevitable? Are they not? How do the factions like influence all of that? And I particularly like how you were thinking about that separating the power, like using parties as another way of separating the power. Now, I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but it definitely slows things down. And so when I was asking my questions about efficiency and government, I think that I think one of the questions I always have as like a legislative person, because I have an agenda for my boss that I'm trying to get done. But I also have things that my boss doesn't agree with that I want to make sure get stopped. So part of the beauty of the congressional process is that you can stop things that you don't like pretty easily, as long as you like have the certain like ways to push things. So the real question is like, should Congress be efficient? That's actually a really good question, because if we had a parliamentary system, we would be passing a lot more things probably. And the party that is in charge at any given year would be able to accomplish a lot more than maybe the unified party, than the party we have in charge now, or whenever there's unified government, because of how the Senate works, because Congress has a lot of ways of stopping things. There's just a lot of veto points in the system. And so I would encourage you to think a little bit more deeper of like, what is the role of Congress? And is it actually to accomplish a policy portfolio, or is it also to provide a venue for having those multiple different ideas as we're talking about them? So, and I think that it's one of those questions that we're kind of all still kind of figuring out, and that Congress was created in the 1780s, 1790s. And so now we're putting it into a modern era. And does it actually still work the way that it was designed to work? And does that still work now? So you guys did a lot of great, I loved having this discussion. We covered a lot of ground. It was great. And I just encourage you to keep thinking about these issues as you're going forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Good job.
And hey, good luck the rest of today.
Great job.